Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the Big East Rewind. I'm Chuck Everson from Villanova University, and my main man, my co-host, my point guard, Sonny Spera from Syracuse University. So how are you, Sonny?
Chuck, I'm doing great. Looking forward to today.
Yeah, another great guest. We have been knocking it out of the park with people that have been coming on, Sonny. It's been a lot of fun, and this guy's going to be no different. You know, I got to know him a little bit when he coached at Stony Brook, which was literally in my backyard. So we got to talk a little bit and see each other a little bit. But he's a former UConn basketball player, former UConn assistant. As I just said, he coached at Stony Brook, and he's the current head coach of the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, Coach Steve Pikiell. How are you, Steve? How you doing?
Chuck, Sonny, I appreciate you having me on, and it's always nice to be Villanova and a Syracuse guy. Took a lot of L's to those teams.
Yeah,
that's for sure. But it's nice to be on and to be with some old friends. We had some wars through the days, and we still did. We played Syracuse last year at home. We got a game against Coach Boeheim, a legend, and Jay Wright, certainly maybe the best coach in college basketball right now. So two great guys. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. I mean, we've been having a lot of fun with this, Coach. I mean, now we're going to talk about your time in the Big East too, as well as your current situation with the Scarlet Knights. But, it's just been a lot of fun to reminisce and go back, and it's nostalgic, and to talk about, some of the things that you might not have known about the behind the scenes stuff inside the Big East. It's been pretty cool. Some of that we've broke down a lot of barriers. Sonny and I have broke down a lot of barriers, especially with the mending the Hoyer and Orangeman thing. You know what I mean? So we've had a lot of Hoyers on, and they turn out to be good guys. Who knew that, Coach?
Coach,
never would have thought that.
Coach, I got to ask you a question. Does Chuck's shirt look orange to you?
No, it's red. I red for the Scarlet Knights.
If it's orange, it's cool. If it's red, he's just sucking up. Okay,
it's Scarlet Knight red.
Let's be clear.
Stony Brook red.
I'm just,
leads
right
red.
off the bat.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I didn't. My brother played at Rutgers. I didn't have any gear with the R on it, but I did have red. I figured I owed you that much, Coach.
Thank you so much. I'm going to send you some, so we're going to take care of that.
I like the way you talk, Coach. That's good stuff.
I will say, Coach, I like your background. I like the fact that you got a little bit of gear, a little bit of swag back there. You're rivaling Chuck Shrine, but you got a little bit there. That's good.
He gives me so much grief, man. It's not even just our team. It's Villanova. It's not just, our 85,
They got a lot of national championships there. So, you should be proud of that up on the wall. Fortunately, like a lot of my wall here is my kids' accomplishments. So I'm most proud of that. They've done some pretty good things, but I do have a couple of UConn things, and hopefully someday we'll get some Rutgers championships up there too.
Now that we're talking about backgrounds and walls and stuff, I want to ask you just to start off, I remember going into your office in Stony Brook, okay? And you impressed me with, you had these shelves. I don't know if you still do this at Rutgers. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I know exactly.
You have these shelves, and they're staggered.
He told me about that.
This was cool, Sonny, because the shelves are empty. And the first shelf was for the first win with that team. And he put the ball on the shelf. Then the second one was maybe the first conference win or the first league win. Then it went, first title, right, Coach? Talk about that and what that means to your culture and your programs.
I do have it too at Rutgers, just a little bit different. And, we have 3 shelves at Rutgers, and now we hadn't been to the NCAA tournament in 30 years and hadn't won a game in 38 years. And so we needed an NCAA tournament ball, and then we need a Final Four ball, and then we need a national championship ball. So I have 3 shelves. We filled one, so I've been 5 years. Certainly not doing it at a rocket ship pace, but we got one shelf filled, and the goal is that guys come in my office every day, and we talk about the goals for the program, how hard they're working. I always point at the shelf. We'll know how hard you're working when we get another basketball, in the shelf. So just a visual and a really good way to motivate too. And it motivates me too every time I come in the office. And I thinking we've done a pretty good job. And I'm like, okay, we only got one ball on one shelf. We got 2 more shelves to fill.
Yeah.
You know, since
I thought that was great when I saw that. And when you had that in Stony Brook, I thought, what a way to motivate, the guys,
Yeah. My staff.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Sonny.
No, since we're talking Rutgers, I want to talk to you because my wife's a Jersey girl. We have a place in Point Pleasant. I'm a Jersey by association, and Rutgers has been picked on for years. And there's definitely a sense and a feeling that Rutgers is what you call trending up. Like you got things going in the right direction. There's excitement. There's an energy. People are talking about Rutgers now, which I think is fantastic. Can you just talk a little bit about, because you said 5 years, where you started and then kind of where you're going?
Well, really, I inherited a program that the prior year was 1-17 and, in the Big Ten and average losses 23.5 points. So we were probably closer to 20th than 14th place in the league, if you really look at it, but was able to assemble a really good staff. The last 2 years we're 21-19 in the league. So we've kind of flipped the script a little bit. The league's been great. There's 14 teams in the league and 12 last year were ranked, at one point in time. And, just really proud. It's been 5 years. I really think we have 2 NCAA bids, but we didn't get credit for the 1 year. We won 20 games and we were going to the tournament and COVID shut that down. Had to bounce back last year and got the team, into the tournament. But I think we're going to have 14 straight sellouts. So people are packing. It's now called Jersey Mike's. Speaking of Point Pleasant, Jersey Mike's Arena.
That's right. That's where it started, baby.
Yeah, and that's where it started. And we're really glad they jumped on board. We are the State University of New Jersey, and it's a powerful university. There's some great people there, unbelievable academic institution. And now we're building new facilities for athletics. And Coach Shiano's back with the football, and we have a Hall of Fame women's coach, Coach Stringer. Yep. Our soccer team's ranked number 2 on the women's side. Our field hockey team's ranked. We got a new baseball coach. We had 2 lacrosse teams both get to the NCAA tournament last year. A lot of good things going on. I'm a product of good timing. I came to Rutgers at a good time, and a lot of sports are doing well, and we got a great athletic director. And
I was just going to ask you.
To a great season.
How's the administration? Has that been stable? I would think that there's some vision, because they're picking guys like yourself who are long-term winners, right? It's not going to be a hit it and quit it. It's going to be someone who's going to put it on the right path. So has that been stable, the administration people?
It really has. I was the 5th coach when I got hired in 12 years.
Yeah.
So as you know, it's really hard. In our conference, the Big Ten was the 4th conference in 7 years. So we played in a lot of different conferences, a lot of coaches, and a lot of different athletic directors. And now we have Pat Hobbs, who's been with me all 5 years. He came a year before me, so he's into his 6th year. We have a new president, President Holloway, who's awesome. He actually played football at Stanford, so he's a former Division I athlete. It's some really good people in the administration, just some great people at the university, and they're hungry to be good. And New Jersey's a powerful place. It really is. And it's a proud state. It's a hardworking state. I kind of come in and I just work. I don't have a lot of hobbies. I don't golf. I don't write books. I don't own any horses. I like basketball. I spend a little time with my family when I can, and I'm in the gym. I'm one of those kind of gym rat kind of coaches. I love to watch film. I love to be around my players. And we've been fortunate. We've gotten some players and they've gotten better, and our program's become a lot better.
Coach, you talked about coming in a little bit about the Big Ten and what that's like every night in, night out. You went on a little bit of a run last year. You looked good in the playoffs there. That game could have went either way, that last one. We were believe me, we were all screaming.
That was a heartbreaker.
TV. Heartbreaker.
That was a heartbreaker.
And then this year you made some big changes to your staff. Talk about that. We have a lot of new folks on the staff. Is that tough now to get them all marching the same direction that you are, Coach?
I mean, your staff is always critical, as you guys know, to building a program. I was very lucky. Every year they've tried to steal my guys. I think the winning helps. And this past season we lost 2 assistants. One to St. John's, Shoes Vitrone, who did an awesome job for me. he wasn't on the road recruiting, and that's the position he really wanted. And St. John's offered him that opportunity. And he's from, New York. And so I was so happy that he got that opportunity. And then I got a guy, Ben Asher, who got a full-time position to recruit too. And he was one of my administrative assistants to go on the road at Youngstown State. So I lost those two, and I lost Jay Young, who was my assistant before at Stony Brook and at Rutgers. He became the head coach at Fairfield and took Brian Dewar with him. Brian Dewar was one of my great players at Stony Brook. So I've lost a couple guys in the past, but I got Carl Hobbs, a former Big East great player. I got Brandon.
UConn connection. Well, UConn connection.
Yeah, UConn connection. Brandon Knight his number was just retired at Pittsburgh, one of the Big East here. He's on my staff, does an unbelievable job. And so I've been able to keep, some good guys, and you lose some too when you win games. And I'm pleased to have my family kind of branching out and have these guys getting better jobs and jobs that, they want. So it's been exciting, but it's always change. You try to add some pieces that can help you, moving forward. And I added a Philly guy from Fran Dunphy's crew, Temple, Tom Barrett. So Tom's come in, done an unbelievable job. And so I'm excited about the addition, and I'm excited the guys left and got promotions.
Well, talk about with this season coming up, we have a lot of changes now. College basketball really doesn't look the same, with the NIL and the player portal. How has that affected you guys so far? I mean, obviously the season starts, next week. How is that affecting you guys, if at all? As
we're still kind of figuring, the whole name, image, and likeness out. I love, Chuck, that guys now have an opportunity to make some money, and they're able to meet with alums. They're able to learn business skills. They're able to look at contracts. They're able to, do some things that we could never do during the summertime and during the school year. So I'm excited that they got those opportunities. I still think you come to college to get an education, work on basketball, get better. We do have the cost of attendance too, which offsets some of the costs that college brings. But now they have this added, opportunity. I tell our guys all the time, how much time are you willing to put into that? You got basketball full-time, you're a student full-time, you got a lot on your plate right now. But, I'm thankful that those opportunities have come for our players. It's now the number one question you get asked in recruiting. So it starts with that. It used to start with the education and the basketball. And, sometimes we used to get asked what kind of sneaker company, that kind of thing. Now it starts with, how much money can I make? And it's a hard thing to answer as a coach, because I don't know what your worth is to the business community out there, so it's evolving. And like I said, I'm thankful that they got new opportunities to, put some money in their pockets.
Are you, as a university, are you able to give them some guidance? Like, I know they can't have an agent, but they can have, like, I think it's an advisor. Are you guys able to help them at least decipher, okay, this is a business now, here's some things you need to look at? Can you do that?
You talk to your guys about the different opportunities. As a basketball coach right now, the rules are kind of such that you can't be involved with any of their opportunities. You're out on the street soliciting these opportunities. But I encourage our guys, we have a big time, football program. I encourage them to get to games, meet other people, talk to people. If you have a passion about certain business, maybe a passion about the restaurant down the street, talk to the owner, and see if there's any way that you can utilize your skills to help enhance his business. So we have those talks, but there's tax implications. There's a lot of things, contracts have to be looked over, and they're going to be making business decisions now, and hopefully they take a deep breath and they have, some of the people around them that have a little more experience with that, look those things over. But our guys have gotten some, exciting opportunities, and they're learning a lot too, which I like. I think college is a learning experience, and this is different ways now that they can learn and value their time.
Coach,
How about the locker room? Has it created any kind of animosities in the locker room if somebody's making a little more money than another guy?
Good question.
Chuck, you always worry about those things because, as you know, and the locker room is the most important place. On your team. This year's group has been unbelievable. They're very supportive of each other. So if someone has a business opportunity, they all jump on board and try to help and promote that. So I have a really good team this year. I hope every team I coach is like this team. They're just happy for these other opportunities that people have. And I have a player like Gio Baker and Ron Harper. They're also including these guys in some of their opportunities.
Oh, great.
So I think that's a really good thing. But, you're always worried about that at first. And you're more worried about it with the people that surround the players. How come this guy's making this or that, and it's like, well, the business people decide those things, and so it'll be interesting how it plays out, but my group has been great with it so far.
It's good because, you get a lot of chirping from your boys back home. I'm sure that, hey, why is Ron getting more money than you? You should be getting more than him, or what have you. So that's good that you can get a handle on it, and we had talked to Jay Wright about it as well, and Jay was saying the same thing. That was his concern when this whole thing started. So it seems to be kind of taking care of itself, as you go forward, depending on what kind of kids you recruited, Steve, right?
Without a doubt. By the way, is there a better coach in the country than Jay Wright? Does it like the right way.
Pretty good.
Yeah, and I say that, and Jim Calhoun was my mentor forever. I remember Coach Calhoun bragging about Jay Wright, and now as a coach that's seen what he's built, at Villanova and how he's done it, he's awesome. So, and I think he's one of the great coaches of all time. But he does it the right way too. Respect how he does it.
Coach, I want to bring you back now to, because Chuck and I were early 80s. You were late 80s, so we broke up the decade a bit. Now, in your playing days at UConn, talk about, because you played on some fantastic teams with some fantastic talent, and UConn itself was turning itself around from a team that was, I'll just say, lower level to a team that now is really one of the elite teams. So talk about that.
Well, I tell you what, growing up in Connecticut, first of all, I used to watch Villanova all the time because it was really an unbelievable. John Pannone was from Connecticut, one of the great players at Villanova. As a matter of fact, Chuck, his name isn't even up on the, he was one of the all-time greats. I said, that's how good the Villanova players, John Pannone, Harold Presley, Harold Jensen, these guys were all Connecticut guys. So as I was growing up, Coach Massimino and those guys, I was like, oh my God, Villanova was, a dream kind of school. And I got an opportunity to go to University of Connecticut, and I was part of Coach Calhoun's first year. So myself and Tate George were part of his first year. And I just went back to Connecticut just recently. And I will tell you, it was amazing because I played in the first game at Gamble, Pavilion. We played St. John's in the opening game. It was January of my junior year. And there were no banners up in Connecticut. There were no Hall of Fame players. There was no, and I just went back, just recently, and I couldn't believe it. I said, oh my God, they got banners and Hall of Fame, and between Gino Auriemma and Jim Calhoun, I just said, it's amazing that the job, that they did there. And, Villanova's won 3 national championships. Connecticut's won 4 national championships. I mean, the first one at Villanova was it 86? Was that the first one? No. 85 was the first one, and Connecticut's came way after that. And it's amazing the history and tradition, of those two schools. But I really enjoyed my time. I was year one. I was part of Jim Calhoun's only losing season, and it was probably appropriate because I wasn't a very good player, So it was probably appropriate. After that, we got some good players. We got Chris Smith. We got Scott Burrell. I mean, we had Nadav Hennefeld, who was an all-time great. I think if Nadav had stayed at UConn for 4 years, I think he would have been drafted in the first round, and he would have left the Big East as one of the all-time great players. So I kind of saw the build, at Connecticut. And then Coach Calhoun, after I left and got into coaching, they just went on a run there that was just unbelievable.
It's too bad you didn't visit Syracuse, because I would have helped you go somewhere else. It just would have been a natural.
Hey, well,
right.
I think Syracuse and Villanova were really smart. They didn't really recruit me, so they have much better talent in their own program. So, but I always admired both those programs. And going up to the Carrier Dome, I was a shooter. I thought I was a shooter, Chuck. The worst place to shoot in the world. The Carrier.
I said the same thing, Coach. Sonny
said that many times.
Sonny doesn't share those sentiments, but I said the exact same thing. How do you find an orange rim and a sea of orange shirts? I don't know.
Hey, I had enough trouble making shots anyways. You go up there and you go through the wind tunnel as you're trying to get in, and then you're trying to shoot the basketball. It's just like the old Georgetown days when they had the Patrick Ewing, the Voight basketball, with too much air in it down at the, Cap Center. You can't swish a shot at Georgetown. That ball would hit off the rim so hard, and they had the best athletes at the time, and so they wanted the misses because they would get more dunks and more rebounds. So those are kind of interesting places there. As a shooter, I hated those two. gyms.
Yeah, I know the feeling. We never won there at the Dome, Steve. I mean, my 4 years, we got destroyed, and they had a guy named Pearl Washington that played there at the time. That didn't, we had no answer for him, as a lot of the teams in the Big East back then. But he seemed to light up when we walked in the gym. The best was somebody's taking a foul shot. He walks over to Coach Mass. He puts his arm around them. He goes, "Don't get too mad, Coach. He's trying. You better try to get to me." So we were like, "Come on, Pearl."
And he was serious. Like, he was sincere.
Yeah. That's
serious. It wasn't even busting. That was just he really coached. Come on.
I tell you what, when we went up there, and back, Sherman Douglas was the point guard.
Sherman Douglas was the man.
Oh my Lord, he was a problem. He was such a good alley-oop passer. He was tough. And they had the great teams with Stevie Thompson and Derek Coleman.
Yeah, DC.
1 year of Billy Owens, so I got to see him live and in person. But you went up to that Carrier Dome, and it was a tough place, boy, to play. I tell you, I was happy to get on the bus and get out of there. And we actually won a few times during my thing. So we actually got out of there with a couple W's, but not many.
So when you finished, though, you stayed at UConn as a grad assistant?
I did. I was really lucky.
How does that work? Playing for Coach Calhoun and then working for him?
That was the great part of it, because I had gone over, to Ireland, and I was doing some camps and some clinics, and I had parents that were grandparents that were born in Ireland. Remember back in the day, Chuck, sometimes you could become like a citizen, and it was a little bit easier then. And while I was over there, the position opened. Scott Whistle, one of our grad assistants, left to go into the NBA, actually. And Coach Calhoun called and thought I would be great. And I'm so thankful, that he did do that, because he really showed me, he showed me a path that I really love basketball, but I needed to really learn and understand the game from the inside. So as a player, you look at basketball a little bit differently. Then you're in those meetings with Coach. And that was like an awesome experience for me. And from day one, I just loved it. So I was fortunate. He saw in me a little coaching. And then when I got the bug for it, and I love basketball always, and then I sat in those meetings and I would just soak it in. And I would say to myself, Coach used to throw us out of practice, like, right before Christmas. He would just, and I always said, Coach, like, if you're going to throw us out of practice, how about 20 minutes in? It would always be, Chuck, after 2.5 hours, and yep. Now he's throwing us out. And I'm like, and we'd all sit in the room going, tomorrow we better be better. We better do this. We better do that. And then I'm in those meetings and I'm saying, this stuff is all planned. Like, it was all planned. Like, he knew exactly what he was doing. We thought he just threw us out because we had a bad segment of practice or something. And I'm like, the guy's a genius. Like, he threw us out. And the next day we would have a great practice. And then usually there would be a game the next day. And we would, and he just kind of knew how to push the right buttons, and to be able to be in those meetings and and then I'm like, now I know why. Now I know why he did this. Now I know why we ran this against this team. Now, so that was really unbelievable experience for me as a young coach.
Yeah, we knew we were getting thrown out on Big East Media Day. So I knew, we all knew that, but the next day would be hell, but he would throw us out, you know. So very similar situation there, you know.
Exactly.
Talk about your relationship with Coach, and also if you have some good Coach Calhoun stories. We know we had Karan Butler on, and
boy.
and he adores Calhoun, and the guys that we've talked to that played with him or played for him, they love the guy. So talk about what he means to you, his relationship with you, and if you got a couple of good stories.
Doug, I think it's like anything. I think, you know, when you play for a coach like Coach Calhoun, like old school, just blue collar, tough, you have so many lessons that you learn, you know, from him. And to this day, the thing I'm most impressed with Coach, first of all, he's a very bright guy, but an unbelievable family guy. And I say this, and I know Rolly was that too. It's a business that's always taking you away from your family. Like, I'm going on the road. As soon as I am this phone, I got to go to a function tonight. You know, I'm on the road tomorrow after practice is over. You know, my kids have games. My wife will go. Thankfully, I won't be able to be in. But it's a business that's always taking you away from your family. Coach Calhoun always found time to be with his sons, to be with, he's got a great wife. And I really admire, you know, that part of it, because you can get caught up in this business and just 24 hours a day just running around, you know, trying to do things. So I admired that the most, you know, about Coach. So as much as the basketball and winning championships in a place that hadn't won anything, you know, that's something that I always take with me. But the story, you know, I tell people very often is it actually happened at Syracuse. And Sonny, if you look at a box score, and I think I was a junior back at the time, and I was in the starting lineup. And so we're at Syracuse, and the ball gets thrown up. And I guess I didn't sprint back and get the basketball. I don't even really know what happened. It happened so quickly. But within 5 seconds, there was a guy at the scorer's table, John Gwynn. And as soon as I think the horn went off at the 7-second mark, so it was 19:53 on the clock, and I came out of the game. He screamed at me for the 10, and I never checked into the game again. I never checked in again, Chuck. And I said to myself, like, what did, like, you know, I really got him mad, you know, and I said, I wasn't hustling from the opening tip, but I don't even know if I was in there long enough to hustle or not hustle, you know. Right. But I went on the bench, and Coach said to me the next day in practice, I bet you'll never do that again.
I guess he's right.
You know what, Coach? I bet I won't, because I won't be starting anymore. Wow. Things, but yeah, he was like tough like that. You know what I mean? Whatever he thought of at that time, like, and he didn't care. And he would sacrifice a game. He wanted to win as badly as anyone, but he would teach lessons. And, you know, you're not doing the right stuff, you're not playing, you know? So, yeah. You know, I learned a lot from him, and I'm very thankful. Everything I do now in basketball, I talk to him. He's been an unbelievable mentor for me. And to be able to call a guy who's gone through all the things that he's gone through basketball wise, and have him give advice that's unsolicited or, you know, with no strings attached, just giving me great advice is unbelievable.
So you're alluding to, so he's still a mentor to you. So the relationship, just like our relationship with Coach Massimino, right, goes way beyond basketball, right? I mean, basketball was like this much of the relationship. You know, we were right there right up until the end of his life, you know. Is that the type of thing, like you still consult with him? He's coaching now, right?
He's coaching Division III. He's amazing, first and foremost. He really is. He's raised millions of dollars for charities in Connecticut. He's Division III coach at a school that used to be an all-girls school, St. Joseph's College in West Hartford. Used to be an all-girls school, and he started the program, which then, you know, they let males into the school, and he's really been a big part of the enrollment going up there. And he's won championships there too, Chuck. So, and they just built him a brand new facility. So he's, he's amazing to me. And I say at his age, and he's battled cancer, and he's just unbelievable. And I can pick up the phone, and if I needed anything, he would get in the car, and he would, and as a player, sometimes when it's tough love and you're getting, yelled at times, pulled out of games, you don't kind of understand that. As I got older, I understood what it's like to have a lifetime relationship with a guy that has no agenda, but to give you good advice, to help you. And so, I've truly been blessed. We had D. Rowe, who was a mentor too of mine at UConn, one of the great people. He passed away this past year. And Howie Dickerman, who was my assistant coach and the coach at Central Connecticut. As a head coach, I worked under him. And Dave Lado, the staff that was there. Dave was the coach at DePaul, and he's now coaching Overtime Elite basketball. Just had some great people. Glenn Miller, who was the head coach at University of Pennsylvania, they were all on the staff. And so it was an unbelievable staff, and those guys have been unbelievable to me. And that's really what you get from sports. I really believe you get so many good relationships and meet people like you, Chuck, on Long Island. I knew you. I kind of grew up idolizing you. Then you're refereeing games, and you're in basketball, and you're doing good stuff for the community. I mean, basketball is great, and it's not just the games; it's everything else around it.
Coach, did you know that this was going to be your profession and your career when you were a grad assistant?
Well, when I knew I loved it, and I really did, and I just kind of plugged away every year. And it's funny, every year as an assistant coach, you sign a 1-year contract, and I never thought about anything other than coaching. And every year, 1-year contract, I was never nervous. I wasn't going to have a job or never, and then as a head coach, you get a 5-year contract and you hear the clock ticking in your head. It's the most bizarre thing, and I said, once I got to be a head coach, I'm like, I got 5 years. I used to sign 1-year contracts, but when it was someone else's responsibility, the wins or the losses, you look at it a little bit differently. And now when you got a contract, it's like, oh my God, we're in year 1, we're in year 2. I got a couple of years, So it's very different as a head coach, but I've loved it. I've been in coaching now 30 years, and it's the people. Like, we just had 2 players that went into the Hall of Fame at Stony Brook University, Brian Dewar and a guy named Tommy Brett, and 2 great players that played for me. So proud of the former players that I coached, and try to really be there to help them if I can, met tremendous great people, and there's great people at Rutgers too now that I deal with on a daily basis. So it's been an unbelievable profession for myself and my family, but I love it. Every day it's like a challenge, and basketball to me is like a game of chess. You got to figure it out. Every year it's a different team, it's a different dynamic, and I kind of enjoy that part of it.
So I got to ask you this, because I was looking up your past. So you went from an assistant coach at Yale that you became an interim head coach at, was it Wesley?
That's correct. Wesleyan University.
Now, how was that? How was that? I mean, was that a great experience? Was that overwhelming? What was that like?
It was a great experience. So I was the assistant at Yale, and the head coach at Wesleyan, a guy named Herb Kenny, who was actually the president of NABC back in the day, one of the great coaches, went on sabbatical. And so I knew some people there, and they called me and said, would I be interested, in taking the job? And that was like 10 days, November 1, it was the first start date. It was probably in late October. And so I'm at Yale, and I'm like, do I want to give up this great job? I got a good job at Yale. You recruit nationally. I was recruiting good kids, playing in a great league. The athletic director, Tom Beckett, to this day, gave me an awesome opportunity. He actually told me you could leave Yale on sabbatical for 1 year and go take the job. It's unheard of.
Wow.
So he said, we'll keep the job for you if you don't like it, or if you don't get the job permanently. And so at a young age, I went and became a head coach. And it was probably the greatest experience for me, because I realized how much I didn't know. When you're 25 years old, you got all the answers, and you think coaching's easy. And I went there, and I met some great people. To this day, I stay in touch with a lot of those kids that are on that were on that team. Matt Kingsley is actually the assistant right now at Yale, one of the players I coached. And so I met, some tremendous people, but I got a year under my belt at a young age. And then at the end of that year, I didn't go back to Yale because Howie Dickerman got the Central Connecticut State University job. And he wanted me to go with him. And my father actually was vice president at Central Connecticut prior to us going there. He had retired since. So I knew that school really well. I kind of grew up in Bristol, right down the road. So we went with Howie to Central Connecticut. 4 years later, we went to the NCAA tournament. We actually had an NBA player drafted, a kid named Corsley Edwards, who was drafted in the first round. So, yeah, it was an unbelievable experience, though, was it? It taught me how much I didn't know.
Yeah, now Coach Dickerman was funny because he was at Canisius when I was in high school, and he and Coach McCarchick was the head coach. They were I got heavily recruited there. And I remember going up and meeting them. And then when he came down to the Big East, he got the assistant job at UConn, I think, right as either my last year. And I was like, Coach Dickerman, you know, it was like a long lost friend, you know, he's just that kind of guy.
Who knew, Coach, you had the 6 degrees of separation from Sonny Spera, right? Who knew that?
That's crazy. That really is. But Howie Dickerman, one of the great recruiters in college basketball and a great coach, you know, and All-American at Central Connecticut. So he went back and coached there. And when I went there, he did an unbelievable job at Central Connecticut. And I just used to hear all the Big East recruiting stories. Unbelievable, some of them. He's like as good a guy talking about, he recruited everybody. So some they got, most you don't get. And he had every story that you can imagine. I would just be fascinated by it.
Yeah, that's all good stuff.
Now, when did you get the Stony Brook head job in the scheme? Was after Central Connecticut you went to Stony Brook, or what was the next step?
Ironic how it was. So I'm working for Howie Dickerman at the time, and Carl Hobbs leaves Connecticut because he was Coach Calhoun's assistant and gets the George Washington University job. And at George Washington,
I remember that. Yeah.
At George Washington University, one of the assistant athletic directors was a guy named Dom Perno. Dom
Perno was the Connecticut coach when I played.
Connecticut, right.
So Dom Perno's the coach there. Dom Perno was the head coach at my high school that I went to in high school before I got there. So one of the reasons I went to Connecticut, quite honestly, was my high school where Dom Perno coached at was a huge UConn, high school. And so Dom Perno's the head coach at UConn, and he's recruiting me for all those years. And then Jim Calhoun came in my freshman year. But I went to games. Coach Perno was, a great person. And I talked to him 2 days ago. He's unbelievable. But he became my boss at George Washington University. So Carl, who played for him, Carl gets the George Washington job. And I didn't know Carl. Carl was a UConn guy. I knew him a little bit, but we didn't play together or anything. And Dave Lato was best friends with Carl, and Dave said, you got to hire Steve Pikiell. So I got really lucky. I went down to George Washington University, and in 4 years, brought a team to, Carl did an unbelievable job and brought a team to the NCAA tournament. We actually had 4 NBA players on the team that we coached. And from there, I got very fortunate, to get the Stony Brook, university job. And was there for 11 years. Coach Nick McCarchick, who was a great coach. I followed him. Stony Brook, he started the Division I, and I kind of came in after it and really struggled the first couple of years, but they hung with me and we built a really good program. I mean, I thought at the end of, our time, we could play anybody. We really could play anybody at any level. We had an NBA player, Jameel Warney, played for the Dallas Mavericks. He's still playing to this day, one of the all-time great players, but we had some big-time players, and the facilities had been upgraded, and people started coming to games, and it was kind of an exciting environment at Stony Brook University.
I think you were there at the best time, Coach, because they redid the whole place while you were there. The facilities upgraded, the teams upgraded. They got real serious about the athletic program. The lacrosse team, there was the Final Four was held there for lacrosse, and all of that stuff. And you were there. I mean, they redid the arena. The arena now is beautiful. What a great place to go see a game. Never mind playing a place like that.
Yeah, it really is. And it's kind of a funny story because as you recruit I was there 11 years. And so my first year on the job, Jim Fiore, a really good athletic director, did a really good job. Matt Sank went to the College World Series. Chuck Priori, the football coach, unbelievable. Joe Spallina, women's lacrosse. I mean, he could win a national championship. So did a really good job hiring some really good coaches. But my first year on the job, they had a sign up in the lobby of Pritchard, it was called at the time, and it said "coming soon," and had a big rendition of a brand new gym. And so that was year one. And then the economy went down after the housing crisis and all that. They froze every project. So fast forward to 10 years, my last year at Stony Brook, the new building opened. So like I went 10 straight years with the "coming soon" sign. I said, good thing they didn't put a date on that thing, because it was coming for a long time. And my last year I got to enjoy it. But it's one of the great arenas at that level. I mean, it's got great like sight lines. It's got the VIP boxes. They really did an unbelievable job. And the fans there were awesome. And all of Long Island, you know, I still miss Long Island. Great people. You know, you got the beaches, you're close enough to get into the city, you're close enough to get out to the Hamptons. I mean, it really is an unbelievable place to live and to raise a family.
Good spot. Yeah, for sure. For sure. So now you're with Rutgers. Okay. I have to ask you, now that you've had your Big East experience, right? And you know what that was like in the 80s, how physical a conference that was and everything. Now you're in the Big Ten. And you had mentioned to us in the pre-show stuff that we talked about that there's a lot of big boys on those teams. You know, there's some 7-footers you guys got to bang around with, and some 6'9s and stuff. Talk about the physicality. Compare that to what it was like back in the 80s with the Big East, because you know it's hard to get a bead on what it's like, because the game has changed so much, Coach. You know, from when we played. You know, it's a whole different game. Not even talking about that piece of it, just like the physicalness of the conference.
I mean, when we played in the Big East, I mean, as you remember, and I do too, it was the most physical league. I just remember chucking cutters. When a cutter came through the lane, I remember Coach Calhoun, if you didn't hit him, like you were coming out of the game. You know,
we called it bumping.
And those were and you had to do it, hand checking, as you know, bringing the ball up. You always had somebody's hand on you. You know, and you guys in the post, what went on? It was like a wrestling match. You know.
Hey, wait a second. I had to cover Carl Hobbs. What do you think I was doing?
Better have a hand check on him, right?
Him and Vern just come. Who's going to stop those two little rugrats? Oh my God.
You are so right. And I said, the big guys, it was like just how many fouls could have been called on one post up, you know, by both guys. And now, you know, they blow the whistle a lot more. I mean, they're trying to take away any kind of impeding progress. So the rules have changed tremendously. Our league, though, there's 14 teams in the Big Ten. Our size in our league is just unbelievable. 7'3". There's a 7'4" guy, and he's really, if you told me he was 7'11", I wouldn't be at Purdue. Edie is his name. And, you know, our guy, Kofi Coburn at Illinois, I mean, they list him as 7'1", 290. I mean, if you told me he was 7'5", I mean, he's huge. I mean, so you have big physical guys. When they set screens, it's hard to get around, you know, those kind of things. And it's hard to move them out. If you're trying to box these guys out, it's just, you know, near impossible. But our league is very physical. Michigan State plays physical all the time. Purdue is a physical team. You know, our league is made up of a lot of different styles of basketball and some really great coaches. And, you know, I really think back, my experience in the Big East helped prepare, you know, for this. Because, you know, Rolly would play the matchup zones and different kinds of 2-3s, 1-3-1s, full court, half court, you know, well, that's Iowa. Iowa does that, you know. Then Michigan State, they won't play one second of a zone, you know, and they trying to score in the first 5 seconds of the shot clock. And then we'll go to Wisconsin. Wisconsin only wants to score in the last 5 seconds of the shot clock, and they never turn the ball over, you know. So every night, Chuck, some leagues I look at and I say, like, everyone kind of plays the same. And then our league, I'm like, every single night, there's no preparation from the game before, really, that you can use for the next game, you know. And so it's a really difficult. Fred Hoiberg at Nebraska, they run all NBA sets, you know. Matt Painter Matt Painter runs 1,000 long hitters. He's got you call it out. He's got Duke. He's got Dallas. He's got Phoenix. I mean, the amount of plays that his guys have to devour is unbelievable. And so every team is so different. And the home crowds are unbelievable. We've led the nation in attendance now for 46 straight years, the Big Ten. So you go to Indiana, it's sold out. You go to Michigan State, it's sold out. You go to Purdue, it's sold out. You go to Ohio State, and now even at Rutgers, we're going to probably sell out every single game this year too. So, it's really hard places to go on the road and win. But it does remind me of the physicality back then. But refs now blow the whistle a lot more, Chuck. Remember Georgetown, how they played? I mean, can you imagine?
Yeah, the ref threw the ball up and 5 guys fouled the first guy near him. There was 5 fouls immediately.
Yeah. You can't call them all. That's what they did.
Right.
That's what it was. Hand checking back then. I mean, in Georgetown, hand checking, chucking, hitting you. I mean, it was unbelievable. So nowadays that game would go 7 hours if Georgetown played like that.
Yeah. Where do you see?
They'd go 13 deep.
Where do you see your team this year, Steve, in the conference? I mean, you got a lot of teams in the top 20 coming out of the Big Ten this year. Where do you see you guys in the conference, and what kind of goals have you guys set as a team?
I mean, we've set high goals. We have 5 returning starters back from last year. The league is terrific. We're picked 9th out of 14 teams. I never worry about that. I think we're really good. I really do. I think we're really good. I think we can play with anybody, in the country. Now we have to, stay healthy and COVID and all those different things, but we got a nice blend. We got some really good veterans that have played a lot of minutes. And then we have some really hungry young guys that because of COVID last year, I wasn't able to get them a lot of minutes, but they're pretty good players. And I really like the blend, that we have, because you need older guys, and we got really good experienced guards. Geo Baker's been around. Paul Mulcahy is tough as, you guys would love his toughness. He's an old Big East toughness guy. Caleb McConnell has got a double-double against Clemson in the NCAA tournament. And then, Ron Harper Jr. keeps getting better every year. He's a really talented, player. And then we got a lot of young guys, and we got a couple guys out of the transfer portal that I think are really going to help us too. That are a little bit more experienced than most freshmen or first-year guys that the program will have. So I'm excited. Our league is really good. I don't know quite what everyone has, but we're going to be a tough out, and I feel very confident we're going to have a great season this year.
Well, that's great. You mentioned the transfer portal real quick. I mean, how is that affecting team chemistry and team? Are you guys now recruiting off the portal? And if so, how do you do that without really seeing a guy, right? I mean, it's got to be a difficult challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it was really difficult this past year because you had COVID. Kids couldn't even visit campus. You were doing a lot of it on Zoom. So I think a lot of mistakes will be made on Zoom. And I will tell you this too. I don't know the exact number, but someone threw out the number 600 kids that were in the portal didn't get scholarships. So I think once people start and that it's not 1 for 1. Like I put my name in a portal, I get a Division I scholarship. I think, I think that'll change things, but they don't ever write those stories, Chuck. They tell you about the one kid who transferred and how great he did and all that. But there's a lot of kids out there that gave up a scholarship and didn't get one, in return. But, I'm glad that the kids have opportunities. If a kid doesn't want to be at a school, then they should have every right to, go somewhere to make themselves happy. So I do believe in that. I don't think it solves all the problems. I think sometimes it just takes them to a different location, and no school is perfect. I say this all the time. You may like the food better at Villanova, or you may like your dorm room better at Syracuse, or, college, a lot of times what you put into it. And how you fight through the different obstacles. And that's part of it. I tell our guys, it's good. Obstacles are good. It's going to help you later on in life. You got to learn. You got to figure it out. You got to fight through it. You're going to have a tough day. You're going to have a tough teacher. You may have a tough coach one day. You may have a good game, a bad game. These are all part of life. And it'll help you down the road. Sometimes you just can't run to another location and think that's going to solve, all those situations.
Handling adversity, right, Coach? I mean, Coach Mass used to say the true character of a man comes out during times of adversity. And kids in this age group, sometimes that's tough for them to learn that lesson, right?
I think it really is. And Chuck, I remember being at UConn, and I think we had a tough practice one day, and I remember calling my dad, and I had 9 brothers and sisters, so I was number 7 in the family. And I remember calling him and saying, Dad, like, I don't know, like, tough, and he's like, is he paying your scholarship? And I said, yeah, he's paying. Okay, then go hug the guy. And that was the end of, what I mean? That was the end of it. Like, there was never another, I never thought about anything other than, like, I'm going to try my hardest and, that kind of thing. But I think now, so much moving around. I said this to a scout the other day when they came to watch one of our players. I said, Ron Harper, 1 high school, 1 AAU program, and 1 college. I said, you should draft a guy just on that alone in this day and age.
Right.
Right. And the guy was like, really? I haven't heard of a guy. And he couldn't come up with one name of one other guy that had been 1 high school, 1 college, 1 AAU program. And I couldn't come up with another name, either. So, it's one of those things that I think the portal's a good tool. I also think if you give 18, 19, 20-year-olds too many choices, like I know with my own kids, sometimes that's not good. With my 18-year-old son, sometimes that's not good, Chuck. Too many choices. Let's narrow them down.
Well, it's funny because I was just down at Monmouth. I was just talking with Rick Callahan, King Rice a little bit, good friends of mine. And I was talking with Lavelle, the new coach here at Binghamton. And, and to that point, the kids that enter the portal, they think, just like you said, Steve, they see this paradise, this Garden of Eden. And there's some kids coming back that lost their scholarship, that don't have a scholarship, or may not be able to return even to their own school because that's now been given to another player. So it's not just automatic. So the game's changed a bit. To me, the good part is you do get to transfer and not sit, but the bad part is you got to transfer. Too easy.
Yeah, I mean, really, I think, again, I'm all into, I have 4 kids, and they're all 3 of them are in college now, and they're athletes too. So I always say to them all the time, be thankful where your feet are. Okay. And if you're not happy, there's opportunities, and these things work out, great. But I also say this to our media at times. I always say, how about let's start ranking the kids that stayed at the schools. Okay. We have these glorified lists. Oh, rank the transfer portal. Like what's going on here? He's been to 4 schools in 4 years. Like, we're ranking this guy number 7 and like type of a deal. And I said, what about the kid, Geo Baker, stayed at Rutgers for 5 years? He could have went anywhere in the country, and he stayed, and I said, let's start ranking those guys, type of deal. And
great point.
Challenging times. Again, I love all the rights to transfer, and, I know what they say too, coaches can come and go and all that. I always say this too, now that I'm in coaching, 90% of the coaches aren't leaving schools on their own. A lot of us are getting fired. 10% end up getting, another job. I was 11 years at Stony Brook before I got the Rutgers job. It wasn't like I was ever trying to leave. I was hoping those places at Stony Brook were going to keep me there, when I had a bad season. So a lot of coaches, 90% of us are getting fired. So it's not our own choice, but they'll talk about the 10% that end up, getting a job somewhere and that kind of thing. But, a lot of it's the administration decides that they don't want you anymore, So
splashy headline, right? Go for the splashy headlines.
Yeah, exactly.
So Steve, we're running up against it a little bit. One last question for you. Okay. You get a grad assistant, much like a young Steve Pikiell was for Coach Calhoun. He wants to be a head coach. What do you tell him?
Well, what I try to do is I try to share my story a little bit with them. I also talk about patience a great deal. Who are you learning from? Are you getting better every year? The goals that you have. Like, I'll have one of my GAs sit down. Well, I want to be, head coach at Boston College. Okay, well, do you know anyone at Boston College? Have you gone to a practice at Boston College? Have you gotten to know the assistant coaches at Boston College? That's the only way you're going to get the job at Boston College. So have goals, work hard, and always take care of the job that you have, because I think kids look down the road. Oh, I want to be the head coach at Rutgers. Well, I was, the interim head coach at Wesleyan for a year, making no money and painting the locker room, and it's nice. I'm at Rutgers now, but I didn't think about that then. I was just trying to do the best job for Wesleyan University that I could do as a 25-year-old. And, set goals, but your number one goal is the job that you have and doing a great job. And usually that opens up opportunities for you to continue to move in this profession. And I've been blessed. It's the work that I've done, but it's more so been the people that I've been around have given me opportunities to get jobs. And when I got those jobs, I tried to not disappoint the head coach or the AD.
Yeah. Well, good words
bring,
of wisdom.
Bring along other people. Yeah.
Listen, Steve, we thank you very, very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed talking with you today. It was great to see you again. I haven't been around you in a long time, but it was just like we picked up where we left off, Coach, right?
You better believe it. Listen, you guys, you got to come down to now Jersey Mike's Arena. I'm telling you, you guys would have a great time. I'll treat you like old Chuck. I'll put you in. So you get right on the bench. I'll sub you right in.
I got about as much chance of getting in the game as Mark Peterson does, but forget about it, Coach. That's not that, way past that.
Coach, he's a big guy. They're overrated. You need a guard. You need a point guard who's got a little Jersey roots too, right? So
right.
I'll be there.
And listen, I can get you guys the best subs from Mike.
There you go.
Oh yeah, man, the Can't Crow special. Are you kidding me? I love it.
You better believe it. So thanks so much for having me on. I enjoyed it.
I'll be there, Coach.
You've been listening to the Big East Rewind with Spera and Chuck Everson. The Big East Rewind was produced and directed by Nick Chico Chorus and Daryl Gurney. Check us out on YouTube, and when you do, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Any comments or anything that you want to add to the show, you can reach Sonny and I at bigeastrewind@gmail.com. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a great night.